And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Traveling up. Roger, planet.
Water towers, fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Fighting downside FD off. Bring in FD off. It's orange!
R45! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
Look at this!
Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
It's nothing to be exciting and clear, correct?
Yikes. You good? We don't need any more of these.
Well, we're back again. It's more Starship fun. This time it's Flight 10 preparations. Yep, it doesn't seem that long ago since Flight 9. It might not be that far away from Flight 10. We've had the booster being static fired, but now we've got the ship heading to Masseys for its static fire test, and if that all goes well, fingers and toes crossed, then we're going to have potential launch within a week or so. That's the absolute earliest it could happen. Of course, there may be still documentation to work as far as the investigation to Flight 9, but as far as the vehicle readiness status goes, this is definitely now starting to see the cadence increase. So this is good news. So we're going to follow this very carefully, starting with Ship 36, heading onto Highway 4 and heading down to Masseys. Thankfully, it's not just me you got to listen to. We have Alex. Hello, Alex.
Hey, Chris. How's it going?
It's going swimmingly. And also joining us is Ryan. Hello, Ryan.
Hey everyone, how's it going today?
And I never thanked the producer. I'm going to make a point. I actually wrote it down. Thank Jay. Jay is producing in the background. So without Jay switching all the buttons and pressing all the knobs and doing all the fancy technical stuff that I'd have no hope in doing, we wouldn't have a stream. So thank you, Jay, in the background. We may have someone else to thank soon as well, but I'm going to wait until that person's new kind of viewpoint comes on screen. Oh, there we go. We got it already. We've got Jack flying in a TFR safe area. That's probably the terrible way of describing it, but in a safe way to fly a drone, by the way. It's not in the TFR area. That's probably a better way of saying it. Flying a drone. So we're going to have the drone shots as well of the rollout. I don't know if Jack's got a decent connection to say hello, but if Jack can, I'm sure Jack will. Not seeing him on mute, so maybe Jack is very busy controlling the drone rather than just popping off the microphone and talking to us. But Jack, thank you in the background for doing that extra view, because that does add a lot to this rollout. If you do have any questions, you know the routine by now. Do at NASASpaceflight for me a question. The panel is now working, unlike the Raptor side on Thursday, where I was basically just reading live chat up for the best. But we can now use the panel. So if you got any questions, do at NASASpaceflight. Follow by the question. It'll go into the panel. We might not be answered immediately. It might be answered 10 minutes or 15 minutes later. It might not be answered at all because we might have the same question from several people. We'll answer one of them. And that way it combines all the questions into one answer. So that's the way we do it. We never miss people out on purpose. It doesn't matter if it's super chat or not. We will find the questions and we'll answer them regardless. That's what we've always done. And that's what we always will do. Right, Ship 36, heading onto the road. Ryan, you are very good at predicting how long these things take. Are we about to enter Highway 4? What is the general timeline to get to Masseys from here?
About 2.5 hours, give or take. It's usually 2. It's a decent amount farther of a roll than to the launch site. And then, of course, even once they get to Masseys itself, it then has to go down Masseys Way and into Masseys, and then get set onto the just over the flame trench. So it takes a little bit to get over there. But yeah, it's a daytime roll to Masseys. It doesn't happen very often. So it's nice to actually see it.
It's very cool because what we'll get to see, we'll get some nice TPS details, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of interest in what the TPS looks like on Ship 36 at this point in time, because we will be talking about the potential of the launch date. But of course, once it's complete its testing at Masseys, it will then have to return back to the production site and have its TPS finished off ahead of being sent out to the launch site to meet up with the booster and get stacked. There is a question here for you, Alex, from Jan, who asks, should we expect a 60-second static fire or a nominal duration one? Ship 35's ascent seemed okay-ish enough. Now, what is the nominal? Because I thought the nominal could be 60 seconds. Is 60 seconds a stretch goal for a static fire test at Masseys?
Well, they did 60 seconds with 34 and 35. If I'm going to be honest, I think 60 seconds is here to stay. I think 36 will get another 60 second, and 37 and 38, regardless of whether their flights, their previous flights, I guess, are good or not. I think it's a really neat thing to be able to test a ship for longer. And so if they are able to do that at Masseys, I'm sure they'll take that minute instead of the usual 10 seconds or less, right? Although, I will say, maybe it is not just the only test that we get to see, because remember, for both Ship 33, for example, he got a one-engine test, right? And then 35 also got one. 34, if I'm not mistaken, did not get that, but they did plan on having a relight test on its flight. It's just that they did never got to do the relight, like the single-engine test on the ground, but they did for Ship 35. So perhaps 36 might have also one of those before the 6-engine one. So we'll see what happens. But I think the 1 minute tests are here to stay, and it'll probably be a thing just going forward for every single flight, or at least every single ship.
Yeah, that's where I kind of like paused during asking that question, because I do think they probably want to utilize the opportunity of having a good ground test, and that 60 seconds gives them probably the data they really want. On a negative side, Yvonne Mush, this one for you, Ryan. I'm not picking on you because of negativity. Asks, how many trips to Masseys do you think Ship 36 will make? That's preempting they'll need to send you back again for another 75. But are we hopeful this time, based on the experience we've had so far, that this Block 2 will have one trip to Masseys, one return to the production site, and be ready for launch?
I hope it's just a single trip. You get your possibly two static fires out of the way, go back, finish up this heat shield, because there's still a decent amount of work to be done on the heat shield. Get the sim links loaded and then go. I hope it's one. I hope they don't run into what 35 ran into, which was a couple of trips to Masseys for engine testing. So, yeah, cross your fingers that it's not 3 separate trips. It's just one.
Yep. Speaking of the Starlink simulators, Severin asks, how many sim links do you think Ship 36 will carry? And have we seen any of them yet? Now, the question there is, if you think about it, they've had several attempts to get the Starlink simulators out of the door, and they probably had a good chance on the previous flight, but the door wouldn't work. Are they going to stick with just I mean, they're not working Starlinks. It's not like they're throwing away working hardware. They are just simulators. But do you think they'll stick with the same plan again and again and again until they get the door working and they get some deployments? Then they'll start looking at putting some proper Starlinks on. That's one for you, Alex.
Hang on, because that was a lot of different questions. I know how to answer this one though, and it is, we don't know. The one about the sim links. Right now, I don't recall seeing any of them lately, and if we've seen them, it's not like you can really say how many of them they're gonna be flying just because you saw a few of them. Because, you know, for Flight 7, they carried 10. For Flight 8, that was 4, if I'm not mistaken, and then for the last flight, it was 8. So how many they're gonna be carrying on this one, I have no idea. If they're gonna even carry any of those, maybe, you know, for example, just put an example here. When they did Flight 3, for example, the door did not seem to work, and they did not try again to do any work on that door or any sort of test of the door. So, like, I can imagine a situation where this flight is not even carrying any sim links, right? Not saying that's going to be the case, of course, But I can see a situation where they say, you know what, let's work it out for a couple of months, couple of flights. Let's fly right now as is. And maybe, I don't know, down the line, like ship 38 or something, we'll try it again. Like that could be a fringe possibility, I will say. I'm not saying that it's gonna happen, but it's non-zero chance, right? But yeah, I think they're just gonna be repeating the same test that they were not able to get on the previous flights during reentry and in space relight and the deployment of the Starlinks. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, Ryan, TPS. We're starting to get some nice little close-up tilts, as Jack likes to tell me to call it, rather than pan, because it's up and down. Of Ship 36. What are your observations? I'm going to let you just talk about it. What are your observations or what you see from the TPS from this angle?
So this actually has a different heat shield. Well, I should say it's a slightly changed heat shield from the last few Block 2s. In the fact that they are using gap filler on a good chunk of the windward side of the heat shield itself. By that I mean I'd have to count the columns, but there's several columns from the edge of the heat shield going forward that don't have this gap filler, and it's really the center of it that has it. Now, this isn't like RTV like they've used in the past. This gap filler is actually, and there you can see where it gets white. The gap filler is actually pieces of felt that have been cut into a hexagon, and then they make little cuts around, and then they basically fold those pieces up so that you have felt folded in between the tiles that acts like a gap filler. It's what they've done on 36. It looks like they're starting to do that on 37, and looks like 38 as well. So my expectation, I guess, or what they probably were going to do, is assuming all the way back to 33, if that had made it through, they would have done a small patch of this on like 34, and then a larger patch on 35, and then they would have gone to mostly a full shield on 36. But of course, since they didn't get any of the reentry data, they're just gonna go full bore and try this out, rather than doing little bits at a time. Now, the only part of it that doesn't have it on the full windward side is the nose cone. It's still the same heat shield as when the nose cone got its heat shield in Star Factory. Because actually, the one thing to say about this ship is this is the first ship that didn't have any of its components built in high bay. We're done. Any vehicle that it was ever touched in high bay is done. But that's a little snippet about this. I don't know why they're doing the gap filler like this. It's kind of interesting. I can't wait to see how it works. I hope we get an actual controlled reentry, fingers crossed. Because I miss our plasma views. Like, I miss them.
Who wants a shuttle story?
I'll take a shuttle story.
No, I'm asking chat. I know you would, because you're going to get forced on it anyway, because you know I'm going to do it. Yeah, Jack, hello, Jack. First of all, let's say hello to Jack, everybody. Jack was good communications there. Thank you for the fancy view, Jack. I don't know if you want to talk about it, the technicalities of it.
Last flight with this old Phantom 4 Pro. What a fitting way to bid this piece of hardware that's done me so well for 9 years adieu with a daytime ship roll on such a beautiful day.
Nice. Yes, a shuttle story. I promised it because I said I was going to do it anyway. Gap fillers were a fun thing for the shuttle TPS. The belly of the orbiter, as you'll know from anyone who followed the space shuttle program, was black, like the tiles you see. Not the same, but like the tiles you see on Starship. And they had gap fillers too. And it was ironic that after the loss of Columbia, the first mission to launch on Discovery, STS-114, one of the gap fillers protruded near the nose cone. Oh, I should say nose gear, I should say. Same idea, though. And it was something where normally they wouldn't be too concerned, but because it's returned to flight, they were taking zero chances, and they decided to remove it. The problem was they didn't have any experience removing gap fillers from underneath the belly of the orbiter. So Steve Robinson was put on the end of the robotic arm and sent below the orbiter and pulled the gap filler out. And it was basically almost like a wafer, but it was covered in this red glue, and it looked like it was bleeding. The orbiter was bleeding. And he actually played on that on an actual live stream of the EVA, saying this big patient is now cured. And the gap filler was removed, and it came back down. And basically that was the story behind STS-114. So gap fillers are something that are not new. They go throughout the history of the space shuttle program as well. So it was just an interesting thing. When I heard gap fill, I was like, bing, shuttle story, bing. So I had to go there. Let me thank some people, by the way. I always appreciate the fact that we get so much support in everything we do, and literally this is no exception. Telstar86 gifted a Red Team membership. Ari Guest gifted 5 Red Team memberships. Not That Jared with a very generous super chat and a very valid comment. Chris needs a soundboard. Jay, we're getting super chats saying I need a soundboard now. There's no reason why I can't have a soundboard. Honestly, it's Jay and KMR, KV Michael Reed, won't give me a soundboard. They just know I'll be crazy with it. And then Space Pub joins in by saying, where's Chris B's soundboard? If no soundboard, we peacefully riot. I want to copy and paste these and send them in a screenshot to Kevin Michael Reed and say, look, come on, the mob has spoken. I need a soundboard. And then Not That Jared's back with 20 gifted Red Team memberships. Wow. Not That Jared, that's amazing support. But again, the fact that we've got nearly 2,000 people in here right now on a Sunday afternoon with everything kicking off around the world, maybe it's a sanctuary. Maybe this is where you want to come and avoid all the nonsense that's going on in the world right now and get to see something positive. Because this is what it is. And I don't say that lightly. We're watching a development program of a vehicle that may, in the future, the near future, relatively speaking, build us a city on Mars and make life multiplanetary. And that brings it back into the context of what's going on around the world. If you think about it, maybe I'm going too fancy with that, but that's how I see it. I honestly do see it. I see this as hopeful. I see this as positive. This is something you can get behind and think, this is cool. This is positive. This is for the benefit of humanity, which you don't hear about a lot these days. So that's my little speech there without getting too political. Hey, there we go. Starman asks, when Super Heavy Starship ignite or cut off its Raptor engines, why does it have to have banks or groups of engines, which we can see on the engine indicator on the screen? Right, let's try and take that into parts. Alex, this is one for you, but I think we might have to just read that one again. I think that's the question there about... Yeah, do you go for it, Alex?
Yeah, they're talking about when they ignite the booster engines, for example, they have this procedure where, they ignite first the 13 inner engines, then 15 of the outer 20, and then the remaining 5. And it's sort of like a 3-bank sort of ignition sequence. For the shutdown, it's a little bit more granular, I will say, because the shutdown, it's like pairs or like every 5 engines on the outer ring, and the inner ring, I think it's like in pairs or something like that. Anyways, it's a bit more granular in that sense. But what they're referring to is like, why do they do that when they shut down or when they ignite? Because for the landing burn, for example, they do the same thing. They ignite the engines sort of first, the 3 engines in the middle, then 5 for the middle ring, and then for the boost back burn, they sort of do pairs of engines, if I'm not mistaken. So when they do that, it's precisely to spread the loads. Well, first to spread the loads, because when you ignite the engines or shut them down, you're removing a lot of force from underneath of the booster, or you're adding it, right? So you're either adding it or removing it, and so that can not be good if you're doing it all at once, because then all of your systems can get very stressed. Like you have to do it very smoothly, or at least as smooth as you can. The second thing, which is really much more important, is that precisely because you're shutting down things, all of your, for example, shutting down engines, it means you need to close the valves that lead to the engines well before any of that happens. And then that means that all of that suction force stops instantly, right? All of that force of the liquid oxygen and the liquid methane going into the engines, if you do it if you do too many engines at once, that suction force stopping can actually create I think it's a hammer water or something like, I don't know, the
water
the
hammer.
water hammer effect. There you go. I don't remember the name of the effect in English, but that's the name apparently. And so when you do that, you can destroy your propulsion systems. And guess what? Other big rocket tried to do that and destroyed its propulsion systems. The N1 rocket. Literally, the fourth flight of the N1 rocket was very close to staging. But for staging, they shut down a cluster of the engines before actually heading into staging. It was very, very close to shedding off that diabolical first stage. Like, it was a mess of a first stage. And as they shut down those engines, a lot of the plumbing just got ripped off because of the forces of the shutdown, and it just broke off. That's essentially what happens. There's other downstream effects that can happen, like, because of the effect of the shutdown. For example, you can also affect the turbo pumps on the engines that are still igniting. That's also what happened on that fourth flight of the N1 rocket. There's a lot of things that happen when you're trying to remove or add, like the same thing happens when you try to add these forces to the booster really quickly. And so that's why they do it in that way. That's why they try to not essentially have a lot of forces coming in and out of that vehicle very quickly, because otherwise it might be a mess.
We got more views. This view is from Caesar. I believe on the left, Jay, help me out. The view on the left is from Caesar. That makes sense because he's further down the road. So, yeah, there we go. Thank you, Jay. So that is from Caesar. So we've got Jack, we've got Caesar, we've got our robotic army, we've got a drone from Jack, and we have pretty much good coverage of this. And I think it's important because you could easily get, it might even happen as well, when we get to about flight, I don't know, 40 or 50, they might be launched every month. And then we'll be basically like a bit like Starlink launches, but it's not like we've given up on Starlink launches, even though they're every other day. We're still doing them while we can do them. So that's what we're going to aim to do. We're a stream on a channel on a site that covers rockets. So we're not going to get kind of like tired of them ever. And you know what? Chat, help me out here. I like to make it interactive with chat. I like to talk to chat. Chat, do you honestly, and this is something where some people they've got bored with like Falcon 9 landings because you don't get the same amount of action on X and what have you with it when you do a Bandicam clip of a landing. Not the same as you used to do. The novelty's worn off for some people. Honest answer in chat, do you think you'll ever find the novelty wear off with Starship? Do you ever think that'll happen? I personally do not think so. For me, I think it is just such an impressive rocket. I just can't imagine ever getting, it's another Starship launch. I just can't imagine that. I'm going to see if anyone... I mean, I wouldn't blame anyone for saying yes. I'm just seeing lots of no's. Jordan! Everyone point at Jordan in chat. Jordan Henshaw says yes. I appreciate your honesty, Jordan. But the majority are no. I just can't. Ryan, can you ever imagine getting bored with this rocket?
Eventually.
Wow.
And by that I mean something bigger and something more powerful will come along, or for that matter, it'd be like it flies so often, and then you've got other rockets of that size flying so often that then we start making vehicles in space to go between planets. At which point, it eventually does become just it flies. It'll if they really do fly it as much as they seem to want to, which is the thousands of ships they want to send to Mars, there's going to come a point at which it's going to be like an airplane taking off. That's what it's going to be like. It's going to be that routine. It's hard to say routine, especially if you get crew involved. You don't really want to say that, but it'll get to the point where it's like, oh, it's another Starship launch. That's what it is.
Alex, I've got a funny feeling you'll never get bored because you're still tracking the fairings on the Falcon 9s and Starlink launches. I mean, for next spaceflight, you literally take every single detail about every single rocket that's coming up. I just look on next spaceflight for what Starlink group it is and what booster name it is. That's me done. That's me happy. But would you ever get bored of Starship launching if it launches like Starlinks are? Oh, have we lost Alex? Oh, no,
Wait, Yeah, sorry, I was out for like a minute handling one thing. You were talking about Starship flights being as common as Starlink, right? Yeah. I don't know. I'll enjoy it. Like it's the biggest, most powerful rocket in the world. I'll still watch them. I still watch every single Starlink. I don't. Yeah.
Apologies to Alex there. Alex did actually say he's going to go off for a minute, and I didn't read the notes. So I immediately go, Alex, what do you think? Oh, God. That must be so annoying when people don't read the back room, like I just did. There we go. Right, so
There it
it's now
goes.
head.
It's moving.
Yep.
Yeah.
Way 4. What's all those pipes for, Ryan? Are they plumbing?
They're running a water line down Highway 4. It's as far as I remember, it's going all the way to the launch site. So I'll just say this: as of right now, for Pad A, Pad 1, whatever we want to call it at this point, I'm calling it Pad A because that's what it is in documentation. But Kevin can yell at me, or someone can yell at me in the back channel, whatever. They currently bring in water using trucks. So they bring it in. It kind of, takes a bit to do that. So if they really plan on launching as much as they need to, it's going to take a lot to bring in like 1 million gallons of water for Pad B. So it looks like their plan is to run a water line to the pad and just fill the tanks with a pipeline. So, yeah.
Right,
Makes it
so
easy.
interactive time again. I'm not going to do a poll. I did a poll last time. I'm going to just let people type. What are you still calling this? Despite what Dan has said that SpaceX officially called it Pad 1 and Pad 2. We've seen the fun labels saying Pad West and Pad East, or at least Pad West at least. And we're still, by nature, calling it Pad A and Pad B. What are you calling it? Pad 1, Pad 2, Pad A, Pad B, Pad East, Pad West. I'll let people type in chat. I'm going to see if the majority are sticking with A and B. I want to stick with A and B, but I also respect SpaceX Dan saying, look, it is called 1 and 2. So I will tend to probably use both, but I will not omit Pad 1 and Pad 2 because Dan's SpaceX. And you have to always go with what SpaceX say. The majority are going, oh, no,
Yeah.
I don't know. We're getting a lot of 1 and 2s. We're getting a lot of 1 and 2s.
Well, here's the thing: is SpaceX has called it both. Is the annoying part. So when they do an environmental assessment, it's the FAA plus SpaceX that goes through and does the paperwork for it. SpaceX is the one who submits a lot of that stuff, and they submitted that it's called Pad B in the regulation paperwork. So what is it? Like, is it both? Is it
Pad
one or
North
the
and
other?
Pad South.
I just
No.
Oh,
No,
but one
Alex.
is west and the other is east. It's east. Well, I mean, one is more north than the other. So that one is Pad North and the other is Pad South. There you
Okay,
go.
how about this? Hang on. How about this? What does that make 39A Starship Tower?
39X.
Oh, no. No.
Pad a lot more east and then north.
There you go.
Hey, well, that technically 39A would be very east. So that would work. But then you've got 37. Oh, so it's all... We're going to have to wait and
Pad
see.
a lot east and a little bit south.
A lot east. Pad a lot east. Did you just
Yeah.
say that, Alex?
Yeah.
Pad a lot east. Okay, right, we'll go with that.
I can't wait to hear what they call the two pads at 37. Because they didn't label them yet. They just put the 2 pads in there. But like when they do start launching from it, I'm wondering if they'll just say, Slick 37, or if they'll label it Slick 37 A and B, or 1 and 2, or which.
What
would
are you
be
talking
Slick
about,
37
Ryan? Nobody has ever thought about having a Slick 37A and a Slick 37B. Nobody.
No, never
Ever in history.
Never. No,
It's
never.
always been Pad 37, of course. Yeah.
Hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Funny enough, if you're just joining us, don't worry. We're talking about pads and naming them. But we have Ship 36 on Highway 4. It is now with its escort. There's still cars going up and down, but we've seen this before. I've actually seen them stop for a little while to let traffic past. It's not that kind of same roadblock you get to, say, the pad. This is a slightly different rollout. So it's fun as well because we don't get to see these too often, at least with the extra views we've got thanks to Jack and Caesar, along with our robot army. So this is going to be fun to watch, but you can see on the road, it literally is. This is a ship that's going to be launching potentially in a few weeks' time. And it's going down the road, literally going down the same road you drive to get to Brownsville. It is a public highway. I don't know if anyone will get bored with that. I find it fascinating. I don't think I'll ever get bored with that either. It's just absolutely hilarious that we're actually seeing a flight vehicle rolling down a public highway. That is being happening all the time, and I find it amusing. I want to thank some more people. Ethereal Swordsman did a tip. So they don't come up in chat, so I'm going to make sure I absolutely say it out loud. Thank you for your support, Ethereal Swordsman. And so I arrive, like stainless steel upon unsuspecting Caribbean islands. I am a chat's master of mayhem. I am the king of crabs. I stand up of support. The stand-up of support. I am Ethereal. Remember the name well. Wow. You put some effort into that one. And then not that Jared's back again. KMR, give that man a soundboard. Talking about me. Jay's keeping a count on this. By the way, Ari Guest has done a £100 super chat. Give the Yorkshireman a soundboard. Jay, I'm going to bandicam all of these things I'm saying out here and make sure that Kevin Michael Reid gets to see it as well. Because this is amazing, and that pretty much, whatever soundboard costs, I don't know if they cost anything, has paid for it. So thank you very much for your support. ODS Moody, Flight 6 at a piece of ablative material, make contact with one of the aft flap shields and take a chunk out the shielding with it. Do you foresee issues with this in the future until a fully reusable heat shield is finished? Ryan, do you remember that?
I don't remember that off the top of my head. I have to go look back at the re-entry for that. But one thing I will say for the heat shield as a whole, the heat shield is the most. It is going to be the hardest part of this program. The shuttle engineers definitely learned that. Making a heat shield that is reusable, for one, is already hard enough. But in order to make it as quickly reusable as they want to do it for Starship, which would mean for tankers to catch the ship and then reuse it right away without any refurbishment, is going to take a significant amount of time and effort to figure out the right setup for it. Like, they're still doing experiments, they're still doing reentries, they're trying to figure out what works best. And it's going to be a few years until they nail this down. Yeah, it's going to be a bit. Even when they send that first one to Mars, they may realize, oh, maybe we need to change this up a little bit. It's going to be a learning curve, and it's going to take a while. So you're going to have points where the shield's not that great, where things are going to fail here and there. It's why they're testing this thing. That's why they're doing the testing the way they are. Because to try to meticulously design this with computer sims and everything else, and then not have a hardware-rich program trying to design this heat shield, it's hard to do. It's also kind of say this is the easier way to do it, but this is probably the better way to design a heat shield this way, is to launch as much as they're trying to launch to try to get as much data as they can out of it. It's going to take time. It's not easy. It's going to be one of the hardest things anyone's ever done in spaceflight to try to nail this heat shield down.
Alex, I don't know if this is the right way to characterize it, but on the previous flight with Ship 35, we know that they had an issue with a leak, which is related to the RCS. Am I correct in portraying it that way? Because Enrique asks, the issue that caused propellant leak, can it be easily fixed? Now, it's speculation time. Are we calling it a propellant leak? Was it propellant tanks related to the RCS?
Yeah, that's how they characterized it on the they identified the issue right away, and they said it on the stream, which is a rarity these days, where they say, yeah, we're seeing that there's a leak on the propellant tanks. We don't know where. Like it might be on a transfer line, or it might be on the actual tank. We have no idea. It could be like an open valve that just stuck open. We don't know the kind of leak, but we know there was a leak. As to what happened, most of the time, if it was a valve, there's probably going to be some redundancies added, and that's usually the best that you can do. When valves fail, that's usually what the only thing that you can do for your next flight is just try to have some backups, because sometimes valves just fail because they fail, right? Sometimes there's a root cause for why things like that fail, of course. And so you try to mitigate some of that, but usually it just is down to like, let's just have a backup situation here where maybe if it's stuck open, we have a way to close it and force it closed or things like that. That's if it is a valve. If it's anything else, it's probably a little bit more complicated, of course. But what I'm getting down to is if there's a leak on the tanks, the problem is that depletes your ullage, the gas that is used to be able to fill up the tanks. As you essentially burn all of the propellant, you need to fill back the remaining volume, so otherwise the pressure doesn't go too far down and sort of crumples the whole tank and the whole ship inwards. So you fill up with a gas, that's the ullage gas, on both tanks. And so if you have a leak of some sort, it'll leak out and just get vented out. And in fact, because they found out that they had this issue, went for the safe route of just completely depressurizing the tanks, essentially safing the vehicle ahead of the reentry. But that ullage gas, those vents that I was just mentioning here, those are what they use for the control system, the attitude control system. And so if that pressure is lost, you literally don't have any way of controlling the ship anymore, because you no longer have that pressure to be able to actuate the valves and everything, and being able to release that pressure and being able to push around the ship and therefore control its attitude. So that's what happened. They had a leak that led to the loss of attitude control, and they eventually just said, you know what, let's just vent out everything, let's save the vehicle. That's an action that's called usually passivation in the industry, and that's standard procedure when you are going to re-enter uncontrolled, essentially. And so that's what they did with Ship 35. What fix for Ship 36? Again, if it was something valve related, it's probably just adding some redundancies here and there, making sure that whatever happened, like if it was clogged or it was frozen or something like that, they may have some systems there to avoid that. Filters, I don't know, things to heat up the valve and things like that. There's many ways. But it's clear that whatever happened, it must have been fixed rather quickly, because they are now rolling out for a ship static fire test not very long from now, probably maybe tomorrow or the day after. So yeah, that's a really long answer, but you probably already expected that.
No, I did expect it, and I wanted it because the details are important, and it is a very relevant question. Not just because we've just come off Flight 9, but the fact that we've got Flight 10 coming up, and it's another Block 2, and we want these Block 2s to work. I know they're going to go on to Block 3, but we want some success because it's important for the program and for the cadence to increase. For me, the biggest thing for me is the cadence increasing, because they'll need that. There's lots of questions that come relating to that. That's where probably my mind has gravitated towards it. But just back on the RCS, this is from Cindy, but also I've seen so many other people ask the same question. So I'm going to take Cindy's question because it came top and ask that for everybody else as well. And that is, will there be any RCS testing during this testing? Now, I don't think they can test the RCS at Masseys, but I'm sure they do at McGregor. But they do it out. Yeah, what do you think, Ryan?
They can test the RCS. They test the RCS when they cryo it. The reason why I say they do that is because the RCS is their tank vents, or quote unquote their RCS. They put quotations around that because it's, well, I personally don't think it's a good system at all to use on a vehicle like this, but I'm not an engineer, so they'll test it. But the problem is that's testing that on the ground versus in space once your tanks are nearly empty of propellant. So there's two different things, and that's already having all your ullage being built up by the engines as you're firing them during ascent and everything like that. So there's a lot of different circumstances. So the conditions for when their RCS had their possibly had issues in the last flight versus what they would be like on the ground at Masseys are completely different. But yeah, they do test it.
Yeah, I think my mind was gravitating towards the early days before Starbase was what Starbase is right now. Back in the days when Starbase was just a tent. Remember those days, anybody? Just a tent. That was pretty much it. And they did a lot of Starship-related testing at McGregor, including RCS. He actually had a stand for it. I think they've still got a stand for RCS testing in general at McGregor. And that's where I was kind of like, my mind was wandering back towards that. But that's interesting because when they do get to Masseys, and I'm assured that providing it's not a very silly time of night, LD, we might still do it anyway, we'll be live streaming it. So we'll look out for any kind of testing related to that before the engines fire up or even after the engines fire up. So that's something we'll keep a close eye on. That's interesting and that's cool. I'm looking at this view. This view is amazing. So we've got the view on the left, we've got a view on the right. Both the same thing. Ship 36 heading towards Masseys, the Flight 10 vehicle. And you can see on the right-hand side, I think it's a better context here, the size of the vans and the cars that it's following are just tiny in comparison. It is something you don't really appreciate. This is a great shot as well from Jack's drone. It's just not something you appreciate when you see a full stack in like photographs, in like videos. It's a massive, massive vehicle. I actually got some of our team to do me some renders of Starship to scale next to York Minster Cathedral. Now, York Minster Cathedral is one of the biggest Gothic cathedrals in the world, and it dwarfed York Minster Cathedral. It really gives you a sense of scale, just how big this vehicle is. It really is impressive. Alex, don't bring up Seville. And we're going to move on.
I was going to say, ours is bigger.
Cathedral's older. Yeah, ours is bigger. Ours is older. Right. I'm going to do some more thanks, by the way. Sherbert Todd Bot. That's a great name. Shazbert Todd Bot. That's a mouthful. All hail Caesar. Hail, hail. So thanks to Caesar for his camera views here. We've got Ethereal Swordsman back again with the very important message, crab. Okay. OSTD Moody's back. Have the pad sponsored. Pad Baconator. Yeah, maybe not. And not that Jared's back. Not that Jared has done a crazy amount of support on just this stream alone. But I've seen your name so many times before, so you are a massive supporter of NSF, and I really appreciate it. And I want to just make a little point about that, because that's $100 super chat you've just done again. Some might say a Yorkshireman with a soundboard is a bad idea. Chris is no ordinary Yorkshireman. He's the best there is and needs a soundboard. I've got my own personal fan club. After 20 years of running NSF, I've got a fan club. It's finally happened after 20 years. Thank you for that. Much appreciated. And I am making a point in our back room that they should give me a soundboard now, because we have no reason not to. Otherwise, we're letting down people who are supporting the site and supporting the channel. So we have to give me a soundboard now. By the way, all this support, you've seen earlier the gifted memberships. It's not just putting your name in green when you become a member, either yourself or you find yourself a gifted one. You actually don't just become a member green in the chat. You also get access to membership content, which I put in there, so I know how much goes in there. It's daily. It's daily photographs and behind the scenes and things like that, but also some bonus streams. There's things like real, things you wouldn't really expect. One of them's coming up as well. Daz and D, right? You may have noticed we're out at the experimental launches. They were doing live streaming for them, and all those cool little rockets, one of which blew up as well, right into a camera, which was quite fascinating. They're doing a road trip from the International Rocket Engineering Competition in West Texas. They're doing a road trip live stream to members. So if you're a member, any member level, now I know, make sure I do it for all member levels, you'll get to follow Daz and D's exploits on the road and taking questions and doing, you've probably seen before with the live streams. Max and D have done these member live streams from the car on a road trip live streams back before as well. So if you've been need an excuse to try the member program for a month, this is a good time to give it a try. Be available to all member levels on the YouTube shortly when the stream is done. So when the stream is done, it starts. So basically, stand by. Once this rollout stream's finished, you've got a member stream to come as well with Daz and D in the car. So there we go. That's coming up. Speaking of on the road, Almost a segue. I shouldn't have paused. I should have just gone straight into this and did a perfect segue. Also on the road is Ship 36 down Highway 4. How far
It's
along on the
booking
road
it.
are we? Yeah, I know. I'm not very good at segues. How far along down the road are we, Ryan? If we were going to do like a scale, how far to Masseys have we got from the production site? About a third?
A third, maybe like a fourth.
Oh,
Yeah.
Not even.
A quarter.
We're not that, or yeah, a quarter. So we're not that far. We're not even to Richardson yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're decent. There's still a decent amount to go. Probably still at least another hour 40 of driving.
I should know this by now. That's why I get aside because I thought, oh, the third sounds about right, Chris. You say a third, sound clever. And then Ryan goes, no, like a quarter. I'm like, oh, never mind. Oh, dearie.
Yeah.
Look into the future. Look into the future. This is a good one. Alex, I'll give you this question from Enrique. It was probably from your same country with that name like that. Orbital refueling will be delayed until next year? Question mark, question mark, question mark. So it's Target and Chaser, the two ships that are going to do the refilling test. When do you think that's going to happen now, based on the bigger picture?
Well, officially it's 2026. I have no idea when in 2026. They'll probably are planning it for happening, to happen very early in 2026. But it's been 2026 for like a couple of months. I think even before Flight 8 was around. So it's been a while since it's been 2026. My gut feeling is that they are just waiting for Block 3 for both the ship and the booster to be Block 3. That will mean they need Pad B complete as well. So we'll see when that happens. But yeah, I'm thinking at the very earliest, perhaps summer of next year will be when we see that at the earliest, if not later. But yeah, it's really complicated. It's not that easy to get to that point in this program's sort of timeline, I guess.
I've got a question, Alex. A question from Chris Bergen for Alex. My mind's got. I mean, my mind has been going for a few years now. But won't both vehicles have to be orbital?
Yeah, yeah, they will need to be orbital. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a challenge, isn't it? Because we've not yet had a Starship go orbital yet. It's a big deal. I mean, we're expecting it, but it's not happened yet.
Yeah, and not even orbital, but also the fact that whatever is the target ship will need to stay up there for a few weeks, right? Because the concept of operations for that flight called for a 2, 3, 4 week time between flights, and so that means we will have to see at least some ships that can not only stay up there for like an orbit or something. It needs to stay up there for a little bit, way more than we've seen it so far. Like the most that we've seen so far, a ship being up there is like an hour or so. It needs to go from an hour to essentially a couple of weeks or 3 weeks or whatever. So we'll see.
There we go. Cool. A question. We're talking about a road trip with D and Daz that's coming up in the member stream later. You can ask this question, Shadow, of D and Daz, because they both went to VAST. Will you guys revisit VAST again since you were re-invited last time? Yeah, we were, and I'm sure we will. But I would ask the people who were involved in that. I'm sure it'll be Daz again, so they'll be on that road trip, and you could ask them that question and find out for yourself. Adrian says, if this was UK, the crew would stop periodically to brew up. Yeah, I don't think we'd be rolling to start with. They will still be going through paperwork to ask if they can roll it. That would be the UK. It's more like it. Stephen Lewis asks, could they turn Tower 1 into a ship catch and static fire tower like in Florida? Oh, now then, catch towers and static fire towers. I don't think that is the plan. I think the plan is to have 2 active launch towers, isn't it, Ryan, at Starbase? No conversion into a catch tower. They're going to just convert Tower 1 or A, as we want to call it, to be what like Tower B or Tower B, Pad 2.
No, the towers are numbers. You're right.
Yeah.
The towers are numbers. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah,
okay,
fine,
right.
Whatever. They need pads. So I mean, they're gonna have pad B, pad 2, whatever the heck you want to call it. They're gonna have that. They're gonna have 39A, And then as we see, they're going to do 2 at 37. Now, those two, the construction cannot really start until the EIS is finished and there's a lease agreement between SpaceX and the Space Force. And, well, of course, they need the EIS to be done for that, and that's supposed to be fall, winter this year. So that can't start. And even then, that is starting from scratch, basically. They have to build the towers, they have to build the tank farm, they have to build trenches or the OLMs. They got to build it all from scratch. So with that being the case, we're probably looking at 1.5 to 2 years until both those pads are fully operational. For Pad A, at Boca, even with demoing that pad, you're looking at 1.5 until that thing's probably ready for Block 3 of launches. So if they were to do all that, then they get 5 pads rather than 4. Plus, they can find some place to build a catch tower in Boca. I think they'll do a pad. I think they'll do a second launch pad, or I should say redo it. And then all the subcoolers and stuff that's currently being used for Pad A will get demolished, and they'll just put extra storage there, and they'll hook in the set of pumps that they're building for Pad B right now into Pad A. Because this kind of looks like what they're going to do at 37. They're going to have one large tank farm for both towers and both pads, which kind of makes sense because if you put 2 stacks on either pad and you go chill down the tank farm and then chill down the OLM and tower for one, you load it, launch it. Well, your tank farm's already chilled down. As long as you have the propellant, you just have to chill down the pad and the tower and then launch the other stack. So I think they'll do it, and they'll kind of set it up that kind of way. So, and plus, you don't need a static fire stand set up at Pad A because you already have that at Masseys. As we see right now, 36 is going to use that test stand right now.
Important question, Alex. And I fully support this potential proposition here. But Owen asks, what are the chances we'll ever see a stubby RVAC?
Oh, I hope it's 0. Yeah, I don't know. They will need it. The whole reason they need it on the MVAC engine, it's because it's not reusable, right? And you're building these engines, and they take time, and every single second stage of Falcon 9 is expendable, which means every single time they fly, they need a new MVAC engine. So whenever they can, if they don't have to produce the very complex and very highly sophisticated nozzle extension, that nozzle extension takes multiple days to create. And the stubby version of it, it's like maybe a day or less, which means you can take the extra time to be able to create the ones that are longer, the full nozzle extensions and things like that. What happens with Raptor Vacuum? You don't need any of that because it's a reusable engine. You can bring it back, right? Once they start catching the ships, it's coming back. And also, that engine nozzle extension, it's a lot different than the one on the MVAC engine. The MVAC engine is, it has the radiatively cooled niobium alloy version of the nozzle extension. It's a nozzle extension that essentially radiates heat away by glowing, right? By glowing, it sort of spreads out and releases that energy, that thermal energy, and it's made of niobium alloy. And so, in the case of the RBAC, instead, it's sort of like an extension of the nozzle itself with its own cooling loops and everything, where methane flows through, and it doesn't even glow, or it's not supposed to glow, precisely because it has all of you know very well what I'm talking about there. It's not supposed to glow precisely because it has a bunch of these liquid methane lines flowing through the nozzle extension, precisely to make it reusable, and therefore not have a bunch of these different cycles, thermal cycles and whatnot. It's essentially just like the normal engine, but longer. So that's why it's a little bit different. But all of this to say, I don't think they'll ever need a stubby RVAC. And please, never happen. Please.
Never.
Is that what we call regenerative? Well, I can't say it, regenerative.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I can't
regen.
speak. I
You
can't
can just say
speak.
regen. You can just say regen cool.
Yeah.
It makes it easy.
Regeneratively cooled. I actually I'm able to pronounce that better than the other one, which is radiatively or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Radiatively cooled or something like that. Whatever.
Yeah, very cool. What version, Ryan, will the HLS Starship be? So we're looking at Block 3 as the next Starship along, the next iteration, but the HLS version will be certainly from the top end, the cargo area, the area that we currently see being occupied by Starlink simulators will be kitted out for humans. So what version will that be? Will they keep to the version of the vehicle from a tankage and engine standpoint, or will they call it something else?
It'll be a Block 3. It'll basically be the tank section of a Block 3 up to the forward. And then, I mean, they'll probably keep the same size payload bay and nose cone. It's just the interior will be a little bit different. So you'll get the nose cone will be kitted out the correct way for HLS, and the payload bay as well. You'll probably get those landing thrusters just above the forward dome would be my guess. Right at the bottom of the payload bay. They might even add a ring to it, to the HLS version, just to get a little bit more room in there. Because it's not that hard to add it. Because currently their payload bay is just a try. So they can add a ring and they should still be able to roll it out of the Star Factory, even with an extra ring on there. So it should be a Block 3 tank and aft section, and then the HLS gets stuck on top of it. And integrated into the rest of the vehicle. So,
Alex, I've got a very technical question that definitely is one for you here from Ari, who asks, how did they keep the ship from falling over on the stand?
They just blow, they just do like this, and they keep it there. No. They have clamps on the stand, right? There's like, if I'm not mistaken, 12 clamps, right? Or 6. Was it 12 or 6? Anyways, there's a number of clamps that hold the ship in place, and then the stand itself is also like held in place to the SPMTs. And the SPMTs, I guess, they are held on the ground because there's friction of the wheels with the ground. But yeah, that's pretty much the whole shebang. Yeah, that's how it happens.
I think the ship plus the stand should be, it's like 350, 400 tons total. I'm trying to remember if can't remember if they filled the legs with concrete on this or not. It's been a minute. They built it a while back, but and they don't even need any counterweights for this thing because it weighs so much. So I think they did fill it, but I'd have to look back.
It's you know what? I think it's actually a good question, because you do tend to see the time lapses from Elisar where it's sped up at like 100 speed, and you can see the wobble. There's quite a bit of wobbling going on because it is a public road. It is something where you can expect to see rumps and bumps and what have you in this road. And apparently, as people have told us who've driven down it, it's not the greatest road in the world. It really is, but it could do with some love and attention, which I'm sure Starbase City, Texas will do. That's the whole point. I would assume was one of their responsibilities. Although again, it's a public road, so you never know. Right. You know what? Ari's also asking, will Starship be the largest object to be docked? I immediately went to thinking shuttle, because you never had two shuttles docked together. But you did have STS-400. STS-400 was during STS-125, where Atlantis went up to service Hubble, but because of the dangers of having no ISS safe haven, they had to have a rescue orbiter, which was Endeavour, on the other pad, ready to launch within a few days' notice if Atlantis had got into trouble. So they were going to then dock them, but the way they were going to do it was to literally have them grab each other via their robotic arms. So they were holding hands literally like 20 feet apart, but not actually docked. But even then, ship is a larger object than the space shuttle orbiter. So it really is an interesting proposition. I can't think of any other example of anything that's docked. It must be, Alex, it must be when they do the refilling test, it's got to be the two largest objects to be docked in space together in one go.
It sort of depends what you count, because then there's the ISS, which is 400 meters across, right? So like, or is it 100? I think it's 100 or 400. Anyways, it's well more than the ship is big. That's for sure. But in terms of like two individual ships, I guess the two combined sizes are probably going to be around the same as sort of the size of the ISS, and also the mass. Like the mass is going to dwarf the mass of the ISS. Oh yeah, that's what I was thinking about, because the mass of the ISS is sort of around 400 metric tons. When you have a ship with its remaining propellant plus another ship with its own remaining propellant, that combined is probably going to be in the order of 500 tons. And that is, if the two ships just have the remaining propellant and not one of them being sort of, for example, like an orbital refueling station or something like that, that it's completely full, for example. In that case, that we're talking here about more than 1,000 metric tons in orbit combined of, when you dock each other. But yeah, it's going to be really complicated to get those two together. I don't know, but like if we want to get a little bit technical here, you got to think about how you move such a big object. We're talking before about Ship 35 and why it lost attitude control. We speculated of potential ways that it might have happened. You got to think about when you have a really giant ship like Starship with hundreds of tons of propellant sloshing around on its tanks, where if you push in one direction, then you've got the internal liquid, right? The fluid sort of floating around, and then it pushes against the other wall. So now it sort of wiggles the ship around on the other direction. Like, you've got all of these forces going around as you're trying to dock the two ships to each other, right? Like, I cannot imagine how complicated it's gonna be from a guidance and navigation control software standpoint, right? And having to manage all of that. It's not easy. It's gonna be really interesting how they deal with all of that and how they build up to the big tests and later with the operations and whatnot.
Yeah, the example of the ISS, I dismissed that out of hand straight away because it's modular. So technically your dockings were all small modulars, and they're obviously mainly from the Spatial Orbiter. Cargo Bay, as well as the Russians, were launching their modules as well. Combined, yes, but then of course, I'm thinking of two objects together. Probably is a question. That wasn't the actual question, but I'm assuming it was because of the two objects together. Again, you think like Skylab, we mentioned in chat, that was one object, not docking to anything else, kind of like in the same style as this test will be. So it's going to be fascinating to watch. It really is. I've got a question for you, Ryan. I know you like this question because it's about the Gigabay. Do you think it's from Sergeant Snipey? Great username. Do you guys think the Gigabay in Texas will be the same size as the Gigabay in the Cape? So Roberts Road Gigabay and Starbase Gigabay, are they the same size?
To start, yes, they will be. SpaceX even stated they're both going to be they're going to both be 24 workstations. It should be 2 transfer aisles with each aisle having an exit onto Highway 4, and basically set up like that. Going forward, and I would expect this to happen at Roberts Road as well. The plan, as I understand it, is to finish this Gigabay and then decommission Megabay 1, knock it down, build a second Gigabay attached to the first. So that's another 24 workstations, so 48 total. Line up the transfer aisles. And then once that's done, you decommission Megabay 2, knock it down, and build a third Gigabay, making 72 workstations in total with 2 transfer aisles running up and down with a connected to the Star Factory. And then I assume Roberts Road will have like 4 or 5 Gigabays. There's enough room in that area for that. So they're going to need all the space they can get. And yeah, I said 72 workstations at Boca. They need a lot. They plan on launching. What the word again and again is 1,000 ships, thousands of ships. I don't know where they're going to store them all. They're going to need a heck of a launch cadence, and not only that, I mean, even if they can't store it, they're going to eventually be expending these things as well. I mean, we'll see. It's going to be nuts when it's all said and done, and the 3-phase plan will probably not be until the end of the decade, like the 2030 range or so, because it'll take a year and a half to build this Gigabay to begin with, and then we saw how long it took to knock down High Bay. Knocking down Megabay 1 and 2 is not going to be quick. They have to take everything that's inside out. Then they have to slowly dismantle it piece by piece. They can't just knock it down next to Gigabay. So that's going to take a while to take apart. So
Yama Nana. I've not gone bonkers. That's the username. Yama Nana. With a super chat. Thank you for your support. Just tuned in, and God, is this the fast and furious version of the Starship move? Is it going any faster than we normally expect? I think it's going about the same speed as I've normally seen it do before. Maybe because it's a daylight roll, it does look a little bit faster, but let's have a status update, Ryan. How far down the road are we now? Are we halfway yet?
Halfway. We're about halfway. It should be there. It should reach Masseys way at about, I would say about 3:30, 3:20, give or take. And it'll take a bit to get down Masseys way. Because basically from the entrance to Masseys way to the static fire stand is about a mile. So it'll take a bit to get down that and then get onto the trench. So, but yeah, I think we're about halfway or so. Yeah.
Psychological projectionist. I'm sure these people are just making up usernames to make me go do tongue twisters. But it's an amazing username, that. Imagine lying on the road beneath Ship 36. Just me? No, I actually did see that earlier. About 10 minutes ago in the stream, I definitely saw a photographer lying on his back as the ship was passing. I assume getting some engine shots. So that does happen. That happens all the time. We've seen photographers at Starbase always try and get that great shot up the skirt. It sounds rude, but up the skirt of seeing the engines. And because the engines maybe they might have the booties on, but they are.
Well,
this vehicle's got engines.
Yeah, you won't be able to see any engines though, unfortunately, because there's a work platform under the static fire stand that completely blocks the looking inside. So yeah.
Oh, I did not know that. Where have I seen engine shots from then?
The only time we will ever get engine shots of ships these days is either during stacking or stage separation and during flight. That's it. It's the only time we'll get engine shots anymore.
You know what? I mentioned earlier, my brain's going, Alex, go on.
Yeah, I can probably answer your very specific question, which is, you remember some shots of the engines in past occasions from this engine stand. And it is true that that's happened, but that no longer is the case. So it happened very early on. If I'm not mistaken, we saw that with Ship 26, if I'm not mistaken, was one of the first, if not the first, actually, to use this stand. But as they evolved and sort of went on with the test campaigns of many different ships, they added like an accessed sort of stand underneath of the engines, precisely to access the engines.
Very good. There we go. I think we stopped. Have we stopped? Yes, Chris, we stopped.
Well, I'm looking.
I think it stopped. I think it has stopped. Chat, help me out. Has it stopped?
I was about to say it's hard. It's always hard to tell from this perspective, but I don't think it has.
No. Barney Rubble, GBR. I know what that stands for. Do you plan to have heart rate monitors on your live chat crew during the next launch? I suggest a while back that you should think about it. That's interesting because I've got a point to make about heart rate and launches. Alex, you always do you're on our actual commentary during the launch itself. If you were to have a heart rate monitor, do you think it would be quite interesting to see your heart rate rise, just from your experience?
It reminds me, for the last launch, I look at because I have the Apple Watch, and so it tracks the heart rate and everything. I was like, there's a spike to 155 beats per minute here. Yeah, that's how stressed I was during that launch. I think it actually peaked after hot staging, because I was sort of expectating and sort of waiting to see what happened with the ship. But yeah, it really goes high up when there's a launch, because it all goes away afterwards. Like, right after the launch has happened and we are closing the stream and everything, it's just like everything just gets released, because all that stress just goes away.
154, that's a bit high, Alex. 154. So anything, be careful there. Right, the thing I was going to mention was I don't get the same nerves as I did during the shuttle program. I really haven't. Even with Bob and Doug, the first crewed launch of Dragon, I thought I'd be very nervous. I wasn't. I wonder if I felt a lot more assured about the safety considerations they had on Crew Dragon, which is obviously they can abort from it during first stage. During the spatial program, maybe because I knew so much about Shuttle, I knew about all the things that could go wrong. I was always a mess ahead of a Shuttle launch. I was always a mess. And if I had a heart rate monitor, I mean, we're talking back in the days where the fanciest watch you get was a calculator watch from Casio. That was before the smart watches and what have you. Yeah, I did have one of those, by the way. Anyone in chat? Anyone in chat have one of those watches? A Casio digital watch with a calculator with tiny little numbers you could press and do calculations on. That was the smart watch of my era. There we go. Yeah, RC Horseman one. Here we go. I'm not feeling too old now. Other people are joining.
My roommate still has one, Chris. They're coming back.
Oh wow. That's retro. That is retro. There's so many people that watch. That's incredible. There we go. Anyway, Ethereal Swordsman's back again. I say that thankfully because your support is noted, because I don't just read a name out and think, well, I've forgotten that name before. No, I see your name and I recognize it because you've done it so before. I like rockets. Thank you for your support. Ari Guest has done £100 super chat. Wow, what the heck? This is a launch stream. This is a rollout stream. Yorkshire Chris on NSS stream. Guide to Starship fans through every dream. Oh my word. Hang on, I'm going to read this out carefully because this is another poem. Yorkshire Chris on NSF stream. Guide Starship fans through every dream. From Raptor's roar to Booster's land. He needs a soundboard close to hand. With go launch and re-entry flare. Let's sounds enhanced with his Yorkshire flair. My goodness me. Did you do that yourself? Did you use Grok? Because that's amazing. Terminally optimistic. Become a Capcom member. Welcome to what will be our Discord. That level gets you into our member Discord, which is an amazing place, and I spend far too much time in it because it's good. Chromatic gifted a red team membership. So somebody say thank you in chat because you've been gifted a membership for free. And Aaron Crosby's done 2 super chats in a row with the same thing. So I'm going to read one of them out, but thank you for both of them. Is it out of the realm of feasibility that many of these will simply be stored in orbit, particularly ones they intend to send to Mars, load them up and park them near a fuel depot? So how would you characterize that, Alex? What do you think the plan is? Because I know Elon did his recent Starbase Mars overview where he was talking about a Battlestar Galactica fleet style departure from Earth. But to get the fleet into orbit before that departure will take time, and that will involve ships being in parking orbits, yeah?
Yeah, I think they'll park them in orbit. I just don't think they will load them up and park them near a fuel depot, precisely because, well, it's not that easy to park near anything other than docking. If you don't dock, having to station keep, it's really very wasteful. And also, like, load them up. Does that mean like loading propellant on them, doing the refueling, and then just waiting? Because I think that will also be a little bit wasteful, where you're essentially just putting the propellant from the ship that is actually meant to hold the propellants for long periods of time to the one that it's not so much supposed to do that, right? I think they're gonna be storing them in orbit in a very futuristic, 1,000 ships to Mars kind of way of future, right? It's probably more worthy to just store them in orbit. But then you can do a few maneuvers and then approach and dock and then quickly go and do the refueling and then go to Mars. Like, I don't need you really need to do all the stuff of keeping them close to a depot or something like that, or having them already preloaded or something. You can probably just do away with all of that and just do it whenever it's needed. It's not really that much harder.
I personally appreciate Elon's analogy of Battlestar Galactica because anyone who's watched Battlestar Galactica, even the old version, but the new version especially, it was a large fleet that Galactica was involved in, Pegasus for a bit until their captain went crazy, was involved in guarding. It was a fleet of ships. It was very different ships. There's no one particular ship in general that was copied. It was they had cruisers, they had mining ships, they had all sorts of ships. I absolutely love that show, so I could go on it forever, but I won't. But that scene of the vehicles all departing, and well, they were mainly jumping, to be fair, but they were the departure scene. I can picture if we get that with Starship. That is going to be incredible. I'd love to know how they will film it. I'm sure they'll have cameras on some of the ships and be able to film the other ships as well. But I've got to ask this question, Alex. Will they literally all depart together, or will they be slightly staggered?
I don't think they will have to go all together. Like, there's no need for that. You can just stagger them. Counterintuitively, if you... I don't know if people in chat are aware of how they launched the Voyager 1 and 2 probes, but the 2 was the one that launched first, and then the 1 was the first one to arrive to Jupiter, right? Sometimes if you launch later, it doesn't mean that you're going to be arriving the fastest or the first or anything like that. So I think, they'll just stagger them, and whatever happens to them, like maybe one is going to be arriving first, than the other that launched earlier and something like that. I don't know. But yeah, there's no need to really send them all at once. And even if you were to do that, there will still be some differences because of orbital mechanics. And that will mean, they eventually spread out in time because it's like a 6-month journey out there. So even a small difference at the beginning can make a great difference 6 months later.
Ryan, TPS question. Does it look like they're continuing with the TPS iteration even without the data from the previous Block 2 ships? Or do you also say data or data? There's data and data, isn't there? I say data. Do you think they're continuing, Ryan, with the changes to TPS regardless of the fact they've not had the re-entry data from the previous few?
Yeah, I think or at least they're trying new experiments again and again, like what they're doing with the gap filler stuff. I have not with the gap filler. It's really, really hard to tell if they have the regen tile or the metallic tiles. Those are really, really easy to pinpoint on the 33, 34, and 35. I've been like looking at the heat shield for 36, and it's kind of hard to see if it's there or not. Because if it's not, and they still want to install it, that's something they still got to do before it rolls out for launch. Unless they decide to chuck that away and just try it on like 37 or 38 down the line, and maybe this flight is the gap filler flight or something like that. And hoping and praying they actually get data this time. Or good data, I should say, because they got data last time, but it wasn't really great because it wasn't controlled. But yeah, they're going to continue iteration based off of simulations and other flight data. But what they really need is a controlled reentry.
Very good. We were talking about gigabays, and I will kind of answer this myself. Sedas, do you think they'll ever build a gigabay at Vandenberg? Well, they don't need one unless Starship goes to Vandenberg. And if Starship goes to Vandenberg, I think the obvious candidate will be Slick 6. So far, Slick 6 is being designated as for Falcon. That's what the US Air Force, Space Force, I should say, said in their press release. SpaceX has not really talked about Slick 6 since much. They've mentioned it, but not gone into details like the release of SpaceX taking over from ULA of that pad. But Starship was never mentioned. I have asked our friends at Vandenberg, who work for different companies, saying, oh yeah, they won't have Starship here. So there's certainly some word going around Vandenberg that they're looking at Starship in Vandenberg. Alex, what use would a West Coast Starship be?
Launching into polar orbits, because right now, their concept of operations in Florida does not take into account any sort of southern polar corridor, and I know Jack will be very happy about that.
Let's
But they
go.
also see, but also at the same time on that documentation that we saw for Slick 37 at Florida, they looked at the potential of launching Starship from Slick 6, for example, and the only two problems that they had was essentially they wanted to have a place to launch east from, and you cannot launch east from Vandenberg. But if you were to launch somewhere else, say polar orbit, then Vandenberg is a very nice place to do that because you have only the Pacific Ocean down south. And then the other problem, sort of, that they explain there is that they cannot launch 76 times from that place with Starship a year, right? Like it's crazy cadence for such a place. And so that's one of the things that sort of, was going against potentially doing anything from Slick 6 for Starship. But in the future, maybe they can just say, well, instead of 76, it's 40 times maybe. And we're launching not east, we're launching south. We're launching to a polar orbit. So we're having a Starship launch site from Slick 6 that launches, 40 times a year or something. Like they can propose something like that in the future and say, see, no longer a problem. We can build this thing, right? Maybe.
Breaking news.
They can't.
Hang on, no, breaking news. Jay, can you do it for us?
Oh dear.
Breaking news. Come on, Jay. You know you can do it. You must have it on standby. No, I don't care, Brian. No, you can. I'm giving you permission.
Breaking news. They have a sign in the way.
Ryan doesn't have a. Yeah, they even came back and read saying, "Do it." Read breaking news. I can't. There we go. There it is. Well, welcome. Shush, Ryan. You don't start laughing. Don't start breaking news. Breaking news from Starbase. There is a speed limit sign holding up the Starship program. We can't have a city on Mars until this red sign has been removed. They have tried wobbling it without success. More to follow.
Yeah.
Ryan, you ruined it. You were too busy laughing at the start.
Sorry.
When there's a news flash on TV, do you hear the presenter laughing before they go live? No.
You gotta stay in kayfabe, man. What are you doing?
What is this? How did they not know this sign was in the way?
It might be a new sign since they last rolled something to Masseys for that. I don't know.
I do think that might be a relatively new one. There are new road signs, and there is a whole bunch of construction going on. That could just be one that hasn't been there before. Or maybe one they just forgot to remove. Because basically all the signs here have those like removable bases kind of thing where the actual sign is bolted on with 4 bolts to a post that goes into the ground. So they can just undo those bolts, and then the sign post is essentially, flush with like 6 inches off the ground. I don't know. Maybe that one is just straight into the ground or something, or they don't have a wrench. It looks like the SPMTs are trying to get around it. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, when Alex was talking about the question we're asking, and I rudely interrupted him, which is rare. Normally, Alex interrupts me, but they were wobbling it. I thought it was going to come out. That's why I stopped Alex, because I thought it was literally going to get pulled out at the time. They were wobbling it backwards and forwards, and it just wouldn't move. It wouldn't come out. Oh, hang on. Are they getting past it?
They're getting around it.
Yeah. Well, that's weird. I saw them wobbling it left, right, and centre, but they didn't remove it. And it looked like it was wobbling away, and now it looks like they've got round it somehow. I feel like I should go on X and do breaking news. Breaking news.
I always love it when they do these rolls and then a sign gets in the way, or just like a little thing. It's like, uh-oh. It's like it's always funny.
Well, never mind the sign. Look at the shrubbery. The shrubbery's in the way now. Unless it's just the angle. By the way, big thanks to Caesar. This is an amazing angle. Really is a beautiful angle. It gives you a lot of scale context as well. This is just the aft end of the ship, and this is the static fire crab stand on 2 SPMTs, and it is just rolling up Highway 4. But it look how wide it is. It looks like the bushes have grown since as well. Never mind the signs being entered, because look at the left hand side. SPMT, that is actually now angling a little bit, isn't it? Yes, Chris. It is angling a little bit.
Sorry. Well, I think they are on their way again to Masseys.
There we go.
Crisis
You know
averted. Calm down, everyone. Calm down. Crisis averted.
You know what? When we get a city on Mars in 10, 20 years, I don't know, in the years to come, yeah, we're going to look back on these days. We're going, do you remember? Well, that probably won't be around, but there'll be people going, I remember when we were covering Flight 10's ship going to Masseys, and they were basically getting held up by road signs and shrubbery. And we'll laugh. We'll go, well, look at us now. We're launching starships like thousands of times, and like we're sending like millions of tons to Mars. It's a different story now. But yeah, it's fascinating, really, how they do these rollouts. I've got lots of admiration for the SPMT drivers, because that looks like no easy task at all. I remember the Alex, we did that rollout. Oh no, it was the Orbital Launch Mount 2 rollout where it got stuck in the mud, and they were basically just doing one wheel at a time to get through the mud.
Yep.
That was amazing. Not That Jarrad is back again. I've lost track of how much support we've had, but it's been a lot. I'm making sure I read every single one out, so we're not missing anybody. But Not That Jared's back with a $50 super chat. Wow. There is no way Chris does not get a soundboard now. Chat has spoken. This is the way. This is the way. Jay? I know Jay's listening. Jay's producing. Jay is definitely listening. There's no excuses, you know. When I go back after this stream and say, well, where's my soundboard? They'll go, what do you mean? I'll go, well, you chat has spoken. We are servants to our people who watch us and people who are in chat. We're servants to you. So when you speak and you request something, we provide. So I'm getting a soundboard. There we go. One more question, do you think? Billy with the question, I'm going to ask chat as well. Based on where we are right now, when do you think Flight 10 will be? So chat, join in. When do you think Flight 10 will be? Post your answers in chat. Give a date. Don't go end of the month. Go give a date, an actual date of when it'll be. And Alex, this is your chance to give us a Nostradamus level answer of when you think Flight 10 will be.
Either July 3rd or July 7th. There you go.
Wow, it's a bit short. I started typing things, Alex, because I was going to go, Alex is going to talk for a bit now.
If you wanted like very short explanation why I'm thinking that, it's because I think it's going to be a very similar turnaround that we saw from Flight 5 to 6. And if you do the math, it sort of will give you July 4th, but they cannot launch on July 4th. They can also not launch on the 5th and the 6th because it's a weekend after a federal holiday in the US. And because of that and all the restrictions that they have, they cannot close the beach. And so it's either the 3rd or the 7th, essentially, either before the holidays or after the holiday. That's why I'm thinking that.
What's this July the 4th business about? What federal holiday is that?
I don't know. I don't know. Something about tea in a harbor or something.
Oh, no.
Thank you, Alex. You said it so I didn't have to.
This is where Max Evans just joins in on the chat and starts singing a Star Spangled. You know, oh no, here we go. Oh well, not to worry. Ryan, when's the launch date going to be?
I agree with Alex. Either the 3rd or the 7th.
Not thinking June.
No, I think there's a little bit. They have some work to do on that heat shield after this. And I'll also reserve for at least one more trip back to Masseys if they have to.
Oh no, we don't want that. We want a nice clean. This is what we want, chat, because we're coming to the end of our stream now, because it's coming to Caesar's camera, and it'll go past Caesar's camera, and that's when we'll end the stream. So we're now in the last part of our stream of this rollout coverage. So we're just covering the bases now. We want this to be a clean static fire test campaign. Now, first of all, Alex, remind us all, it might not just be one static fire test. They may do the 6-engine test and a single engine in flight test, correct?
Yeah, and in that case, I think it would be first the single engine, because the 6-engine static fire test, especially for a minute, seems to put a dent on that flame trench at Masseys. So I will, if I were those engineers, I will probably do the one that doesn't do that much damage, which is a single engine one, and then I will deal with a bigger one. But if that were to happen, that could happen as early maybe as tomorrow-ish. We'll see, right? And we'll go from there and see what happens.
Yeah. Wow. Look at these shots from Caesar now. He will have some internet. He's done well, actually, to be fair. It's quite a very smooth stream. I was expecting some dropouts because a big, massive steel rocket was going past his camera. But look at this. We're getting the shots. Ryan, you wanted these shots, didn't you, with the TPS? Look at these shots here.
Oh, so those are missing tiles. Not
Yeah,
white
those are
tiles.
missing tiles.
No, the ones I thought that were white. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get what
interesting.
you mean. The ones under the common dome.
That's odd.
Yeah,
Huh.
there's a bunch of. I will say though, Ryan,
Yes.
does it seem to you that there's gonna be missing tiles on purpose this time around? I don't mean
look
the
like
ones that are missing right now are missing because are on purpose, but like, there's usually this sort of bunch of tiles that are missing, because they try to do these tests and everything, and the usual spots that we saw the previous ship. I don't see any of those missing unless they
I don't
first install
either.
it and then they remove it.
I don't see it missing either, because there's one particular spot on the top of the aft flat fairing, so a little top cone on it, where they don't remove a tile. They cut out a section of tiles. Like they cut through a couple of tiles and take a section out, is what they've done a few times in the past. It looks god awful when they do it. They haven't done it on this one.
Yeah.
But it is
And-
interesting that those are actually missing, because it almost looks like there's ports on that
Yeah.
side. It's kind of odd.
And for people that are watching that might be wondering, like, why are they even caring about the TPS? Because like, it's going for a static fire. Who cares that it doesn't have all the tiles, right? It's not going for flights. It's not going to be stacked on a ship, on a booster or anything. It's not going to be flying like tomorrow or something like that. Like, who cares? Well, we care, right? The whole reason we care is because, if it were indeed complete, then a flight in a matter of like a week or so before June ends will be a lot more doable, right? Like we saw that with Ship 35 the last time it rolled for that sort of spin prime that it did at Masseys. It was very much complete. Like the TPS was pretty much ready to go for flight, right? And all that it had to do was roll back to the production site, get the Starlink simulators, a few touches here and there, and then it rolled back out to the launch site. It got stacked and launched, and that happened within a week of their timeline, essentially. So if it's not complete, then that means there's a little bit more work to do once it rolls back. So it might not be a week, might be a little bit more.
There we go. Right, so as Ship 36 rolls off into the distance towards the Masseys test site, that's the end of our coverage for this. I want to thank Jay in the background, who is now probably busily Googling how to provide me with a soundboard. Thanks for all the support we're getting. Mentioning I should get a soundboard. Thank you for backing me up on that one. I hopefully will be doing a Raptor side and not too distant future with a soundboard. Yes, it will be chaos, but hey, you got to enjoy yourself while you can. Bideford, by the way, July the 3rd celebrate. Bideford, are you Canadian? I think July the 3rd, is Ryan, is it right? July the 3rd is Independence Day for Canada?
I don't remember. I don't know.
I can't remember. Bideford, let us know. Anyway, let us know. It's okay, Chris and Alex. We'll have to launch someday to celebrate something for all of you. There we go. Yes. Well, we've got November the 5th in UK, which is Guy Fawkes Night, Bonfire Night. Remember the 5th of November. There we go. He was from York, by the way. But let me not digress too much because it isn't a stream. I want to thank also who's been on with us is Alex. Thank you, Alex.
It's been a pleasure, and for anybody that is a member, there's that driving stream soon.
How did they present it to me? It was the hang on. Oh, I've lost it. It was the I've lost it. Where is it? Someone said D and Daz an excellent adventure or something, was it? Yeah.
It is the title of the stream at the very least. It's Daz and D drive to Starbase. So
Oh, there it is. Yeah, we're going to redirect to members after this, which is the Daz and D Excellent Adventure stream. There we go. Road trip stream for members.
The real question will be, do they get stuck on the beach at the end of the trip?
Oh, yeah, July the 1st is Canada Day. There we go. I'm getting confused. Not to worry. Anyway, also thank you to Ryan. Thank you, Ryan.
It's so much fun to always come on here and talk about Starship and everything like that. So yeah, hopefully this is a successful campaign and it doesn't go back to Masseys again. Please just launch it. Just get it over with.
And we got to see these wonderful views thanks to Caesar out there providing this view we're seeing right now. This is literally Caesar's view right now. With an excellent camera. We've got that excellent pass-by shot as well, and the distance shots as well. And also thank you to Jack, who we can say hello, because Jack is on communications, for the drone shots as well. Thank you, Jack.
Yeah, absolutely. That was, like I said, that was probably the last time I'm ever going to fly that particular drone. So that was a treat. I hope the views were nice.
They were very nice. Very nice indeed. I was shouting metal print. So when I shout metal print in the back room to our store team, that's me happy with what we're seeing. So there we go. So thank you to everyone who's...
I did take some stills. I don't know if any are print worthy, but I'll of course send them to your way and to the members as well.
Yeah, Mr. Adrian will be the one to decide that for sure. I if we can get some prints of that, because it did look like an amazing view with the factory behind everything like that. It looked great. Anyway, enough of my rambling, because I've gone past my hour. After an hour, I'm known for basically turning to a mumbling wreck. So we've been on for 95 minutes. It's amazing I can still use English words right now, just about. But on that bombshell, let me say thank you for all your support. We had so much support on the stream, it was ridiculous. And I say ridiculous in a nice way. So I very much appreciate that. But having several thousand people on a Sunday watching a ship roll down Highway 4 just shows the interest levels are still there. So that's great. That's the biggest takeaway from this, I would say. Hopefully, we're going to have a static fire stream next of Ship 36 at Masseys. And until then, if you remember, D and Daz Excellent Adventure stream. And if not, we'll speak to you soon. So until then, thank you and goodbye.
And here we go.
We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
Our 68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up.
Water towers fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside FD off. Bring in FD off. It's orange! 145! Oh my god! Oh my god! Decollage! What is it? Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This is meant to be exciting and clear, correct?